Hey everyone, this is Chef Stephanie here at Turtle Farm's Teaching Kitchen, and I'm actually using something pretty unusual for most people right now. We're gonna saute some sweet potato greens in some curry powder and finish it with some coconut milk, but I don't think most people have seen sweet potato greens, so this is with the vine still attached, and they kind of look like grapevine leaves, stuff like that, so most people don't use them. Obviously we use the sweet potatoes way more than the greens, but they're actually pretty traditional for a lot of different cultures in Africa and Asia, so I figured I'd illuminate how to use them just in case you see them at the farmer's market, because they're delicious and more people should use them, to be honest. So what I just did there is I took the stem off the leaf, just because the stem is a little bit hardier, kind of like I do with Swiss chard. I take it off and I still use it, but I cut it separately into smaller pieces so that it cooks at about the same rate as the greens, just because otherwise if I didn't cut them they would take a lot longer, and then they might be still undercooked while the greens are total mush, and I don't want mushy greens. So all I'm going to do with the stems is slice them really finely, and I didn't think you needed to be subjected to doing a whole bunch of them, so I've already cut a bunch. So I'm just gonna put that there. Then my leaves, I stack them up in a nice row, roll them up, and I do this with my sage leaves or any type of herbs too, just because it goes a lot faster, and I'm just slicing right through it. So I've got my sweet potato greens, and I've got my stems. Another quick thing about sweet potato greens, when you wash them, you can actually use a salad spinner to clean them, just because sometimes they're a little sandy or soily still, which is totally fine, but you really don't want to wash them too far in advance because they will wilt very quickly. They're very susceptible to heat. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on a saute pan on about medium heat. I'm going to start with a little bit of olive oil, and I've already got some diced, so I'm going to put those in there and we're going to let them sweat. I'm going to put them in a more even layer, and I've also got a pinch of cayenne and some curry powder. So I'm going to add those in because I want them to kind of get absorbed in that oil and really bring out all of those flavors. And unfortunately you're not in the kitchen with me, but it's going to smell awesome really quick. So we're going to let that cook. Once the red onions have gotten translucent, I'm going to add my stems in, cook them for about 30 seconds, then I'll add in the greens. Then we'll season it a little bit more, finish it off with some coconut milk, and then just garnish with a little bit of cilantro, and that's it. It's a very simple dish, but it's really awesome and kind of unique. I was actually playing with some sweet potato greens yesterday, and we used them in a fall salad for our fall salads class, and it's with a peanut dressing and some fonio, which is this super grain, kind of like millet, but it cooks like couscous, so it's really versatile. So I use them raw and when I saute them. I don't really braise them like collards just because they're so tender, but you could if you really like that type of texture. So we're just waiting. We gotta be patient. I'm really impatient. So that's one of the hardest things about cooking, is taking your time and letting the product do what it needs to. All right. So it's starting to smell really wonderful in here. This dish is also really great with a little bit of ginger and garlic, if you're into that. I wanted to keep it a little bit more straightforward, but it would be delicious with that. So now that our red onions are a little translucent, we're going to throw in the stems. We're going to hit it with a pinch of salt. Stir that around. And because I cut them so small, they really don't take that much longer than the greens, but I just want to get them cooking a little bit longer. All right. So from there, all my greens are going in the pot. And I'm just going to hit it with some coconut milk. We'll stir that. And depending on if you really like a lot of liquid or moisture, you can always add more milk. I just like mine as a little tiny sauce around the greens, so I don't do too much, but it's really up to you. All right, so from there, I've got a little bit of lime juice. So I'm just going to squeeze just a little bit in there. I like it because I like the balance of the acidity with the curry powder. But that's about it. So I'm going to turn it off. Just hit it with another tiny pinch of salt. I'm going to toss in some cilantro from the farm. So with cilantro or any fresh herbs, you want to really add them right at the end because you don't want them to wilt or become really sad. So I just toss that in there just because I love cilantro in this dish, so I put a ton in, and if you just put it on top, it looks just like a pile of cilantro. So I've got a little bowl, and we're just gonna put it in there for the sake of getting to see it in a different form besides in a saute pan. But it's a really, humble side dish. So I really like serving it with some whole grains and some other sides, but it's really nice and very vibrant, so it's awesome for that early fall weather. Enjoy.